It's great to be back, really. And here we have Damjan with his Snapchat camera. And thanks for supporting us and him. Just to let you know that from our last stream, from now you can subscribe to our channel and also have fun with our new stickers. So it's something new. And also today we have a giveaway. We have one t-shirt from Substance. Also thanks Substance for supporting our streams and giving us giveaways. Thanks Damjan for the... I don't know what to say. So the giveaway will be the Met book. So here we have concepts, arts from artists all around the world. So they have Substance had a challenge for this and also awards. So follow Nikola Damjanov and as well Substance 3D, and we're going to give away this toy so you can paint it at home. So definitely it's something nice, and I think this we're going to give away in pairs, and the t-shirts is going to be separate, so we'll have more, let's say, prizes. For our last stream we had also awards and also giveaways, so those will be sent in few days because of the situation in the virus. It's pretty awful, but definitely we're going to send it. And I'm sorry to announce that we have to when each of you let's say gets the giveaway, they have to pay their own shipping. So definitely it's a little lot for us because sometimes we're going to send something to the USA, it costs us more than the package, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to let Nikola Damjanov introduce himself, also as well his new camera.
Okay, good. This mustache is actually real, so I'm not a potato head anymore. Welcome. I hope that some of you who are listening tonight are some of the people that I met last year. I was in Skopje. I had a great time. So the second that Stefan asked me to kind of do something again, I was like all into it. So, but if you're not some of the person that I've met last year, so then you're probably kind of wondering who the hell am I? So let me just give you like a quick introduction before we start the presentation itself. So my name is Nikola Damjanov. I'm a 3D generalist, 3D artist. I've been working in the industry, creative industry, for like more than 15 years, 16, 17 years, something like that. Started doing local TV shows, local music videos, like visual effects for all of that. Then I kind of switched to doing architectural visualization, then product visualization. Then I was with a really cool architectural studio for a couple of years, doing even like product actual design. Then I took another turn. Then I went to like more along the lines of graphic design, web design. I had a short excursion of couple of maybe like a year and a half doing like really hardcore interactive art installations with like analog sensors and coding and whatnot. And then maybe like something 9-10 years ago, I started like doing actual gaming stuff. And then 8 years ago, I started working for a mobile gaming company in Belgrade, Serbia, called Nordeus. And I've been there since. Started as like a first in-house artist, and now I'm a lead game artist. I was actually a lead up until a week ago on a project called Heroic. It's like a free-to-play mobile gaming high fantasy called card battle game. And just recently, I have moved to a new undisclosed project yet. So new exciting stuff for me. So basically that, generalist, very kind of varied experience. I like being a generalist. I think I never want to specialize. I hate being specialized. But maybe we will understand why after today's presentation.
Yes, for sure. I'm also a generalist and I love it because I have to work on many amazing things and also experiment in many softwares. Any secrets about the non-disclosure project?
No, hell no. It's way too early to say, but if we nail this one down, it's gonna be really cool and really big.
Perfect. Last time I was your guest at Nordus, pretty amazing studio as well as very large, and you have showers, your own gym, and many other things. So, can you let them know any other experience because it's a new building, and I hope that you're having a great time there.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a slide in my presentation, like specially dedicated to the building, so I'll share some more information there. Don't worry. It's a cool new place. Like we were renting offices for many years, and during last year we kind of now have our own building. So the funny thing is, when I joined the company, it was like January 2012, I think. Yeah, yes, 2012. So when I joined the company, we had like I think 6 offices on the floor, and now we have 7 floors. So like just being there, like being able to live through all that growth and expansion, it's an incredible feeling. Like whoever can be a witness and contribute to something like that, I really kind of recommend it. And if you cannot be a witness, if you just want to join it, I mean, we are like as a company constantly hiring. So just go to nordios.com and you will find the positions that we are currently hiring for. And if anybody is interested into coming and has kind of the skill set that we need, even now in this horrible situation the world is in, we are still hiring people like every week.
Yeah, it's perfect to hear that. Yesterday I was talking with our instructor Andre, and we was discussing that we will able to live there maybe for 5 years without leaving the building. So definitely it was pretty amazing. So as well we have Hugo. Yeah, it's great to be hosted by Hugo Desk. So definitely, if nobody knows, Hugo has his own channel for visual effects, as including there he's streaming like reviewing for portfolios. So you definitely can check his channel. Later we're going to have also links in the chat for his channel. And maybe in 2 weeks, something like that, on the 15th of May, we're going to have a stream with him. So definitely keep yourself updated, and let's go with Nikola after the break. 30 seconds.
So welcome back after this short break, and shout out to Hugo. Like really, you should follow him. He's a guy who's so open about sharing his knowledge. And even though I'm not like a composer guy, I love watching his videos because every time I learn something new. And I also heard, Hugo, that you have a little bit of a crush on me, which is completely fine. Next time you actually come to Belgrade, we're definitely gonna show you around and show you the building and go for some drinks. Now back to the topic at hand. So welcome to my talk. The topic of the talk is procedural content generation for self-improvement, experimentation, and production. I've been told some time ago that like very long titles make the talk look smarter, so I kind of try to incorporate that feedback into this. I hope, because it always feels like very important. You know, like every time you see like a PhD has a very long title, I try to kind of use the same mechanics here. But this talk is probably not going to be that smart as the title might indicate. This will be more like a personal journey of how I learned and adopted some of the procedural workflows. And like hopefully, if you're not doing that as an artist currently, if I persuade only one person by the end of this talk to start doing some of the things, I'll consider this extreme personal victory. So, and I will obviously kind of try to share all the learnings along the way. If you don't agree with something that I've said, please be vocal about it. I love exchange of opinions, and I hope that we'll have some kind of a discussion by the end. So, like I said, I come from Nordius. Just quickly, can I already share some of the information? Like, of course, our kind of top-notch product is Top 11. That's kind of the product which is actually a mobile game which is alive for more than 10 years now, which I think is some kind of, it has to be some kind of a record. Like the game itself has, I think like more than 150 million registered users. And what is actually even more impressive to me and even more fun to me is that we have players from every country in the world. So you have players from Vatican, we have players from North Pole, and that's kind of really, really cool trivia for me to know. We have a couple of more games in let's say, soft launch / global launch. That's kind of Golden Boot and Heroic game, the game I was working on for the better part of the last 4 years. And this is the building that we mentioned. It's like kind of the whole new facilities that we build, and it's pretty awesome. It's completely catered to all our needs. It's so spacious. We have everything that we ever wanted. It's very modern, and it's just like you want to come to work every day and probably never leave. Anyway, so like I said, I am a game artist by day. So I have worked in Nordius for, like I said, more than 8 years. And since I joined, the company was very young. It was kind of more like a startup mentality when I joined. So what that meant is that I rather quickly moved through the ranks. I was the first in-house hired artists. And then when we hired even more people, I kind of progressed and leveled up my career. So at one point, even maybe faster than I should have, I started like spending more time managing products and people, and then less time doing hands-on work. And that really kicked me into a panic mode at one point. I have this imposter syndrome. I think that every artist has it, at least at one point in their career. And it really hit me really hard. So what I did in trying to kind of compensate for that imposter syndrome, I started working really hard at home. So what I like to say is that like I'm a game artist by day and I'm like a procedural thinker by night. I tend to do this dual lifestyle, which is not really healthy to be honest, but I am enjoying it at the moment. I think that my age is still kind of coping with all the additional stress and lack of sleep. But don't do that if you can avoid it. And of course, like as an artist who is a generalist artist, I always wanted to do everything, and I still want to do everything. So some years back, I think it was like 4 years ago now, I made this kind of all by myself. It was kind of project that I wanted to learn Unreal at the time. I wanted to kind of build some kind of an environment to try to do a little bit of camera movement, storytelling, audio, like just to try what can I do when I'm completely on my own. And it took me around 3 months to actually build this environment. This is like running in real time in Unreal Engine on a at that time, God knows how many year old computer. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the entire process. It really kind of catered to me as a generalist doing everything. But I was like manually sculpting, texturing, even placing every individual item of this environment. And back then I kind of figured out there has to be a more cooler, easier way to do this. There has to be a way where we can work smarter, not actually harder. So what I did, so modeling was easy to me. I was at that time I was primarily interested into speeding up texturing. There were tools back in the day like Quixel, Dido, Endo that gave you some smart ways on how to be faster. But at one point, rather quickly, I came across Substance Designer, and to me it was a love at first sight. So I haven't mentioned this, but I have like I have a degree in interactive media. But before finishing that university, I almost finished electrical engineering. So I am kind of this. My brain is kind of split between like being a developer and being an artist, and like doing a tool like Substance Designer kind of catered to both sides of my brain. So I decided like, okay, cool. This is gonna be the way how I do things from now on. So what does kind of dealing with nodes mean? It basically kind of means dealing with this kind of a kind of spaghetti mess for most of the time. Hugo will probably disagree at this point because like all of his new graphs are so tidy and nice. That's one thing I still haven't learned for him, but I will, Hugo. Don't worry. So for those of you who are not familiar, so it's not about like crafting a single asset. It's more about like establishing like entire system that will generate some outputs based on some inputs and parameters. So then I wanted to learn Substance Designer. And I think that every like artist who started learning Substance Designer either started by doing like a brick wall or roof tiles, because basically, like especially back then, those were the only tutorials that were available. So I chose roof tiles for no particular reason. Just felt it was kind of more interesting as a stylistic choice. Even though like there were only 2 tutorials, they were actually really good. Like they were like great options, and they really kind of guided you through the tool and showcased like the power of the tool itself along the way, and why the artist who made the tutorial made some specific choices. And I followed that tutorial completely, like to the T, like down to every frames and labels and whatnot. But what was good, the good thing was that I was immediately prepared after the tutorial to kind of take it further and not stop where the actual tutorial ended. Because I wanted to feel that procedural power. I didn't want to kind of like do one asset. I want to see what can actually do that. I want to experience that one-click content variation and generation. And so I did, I kind of took the tutorial further. I built like custom colors. I built like shape variations. I build like control over amount of moss, amount of lichen on top of everything. So I was feeling really, really good. I was able to kind of take it one notch further. And even though that at the time I still didn't have like maybe skills to make better procedural textures, but I definitely had like knew how to make a better model than just a simple plane. So I can just create like a simple roof just to kind of put the texture a little bit more in context. I mean, technically, it was very, very small step, but it did kind of showed me. It did kind of made me learn something. I really learned that procedural was very powerful as a technique, extremely powerful. It really kind of opened my eyes to a completely new way of working, and also showed me something that I basically even knew before as an artist, and what I really think that every artist, especially young ones, should kind of try to do, that you should never stop at the end of tutorial. There's so many great tutorials, whatever you do, from incredible artists. And then I see a lot of artists doing the tutorials and posting the exact same outputs and work on their portfolios. And it's just a shame. I mean, you're an artist. Don't do that. Change it. Add something. Make that thing your own. It will really kind of help you grow, and it will help you kind of nail that job that you're going after. So kind of finishing that roof, I was really like full of myself. I was happy. I was really bragging, like go around the offices, like, oh, look at this, like this is good. This is the future. This is how I do things now. Everything's gonna be procedural. I can do everything. And I really like generally making my own life miserable. So I actually what I did, I dared my colleagues at the time, like, okay, you now give me a texture that I want that you want me to make. I will show you that everything can be done. And they send me this. One of my friends just sent me this photo, like, go make this procedurally. Oh my God, this was like a huge step up in difficulty for me because I really didn't have a tutorial to follow. I was like on my own. But okay, challenge accepted. I kind of dug out my own hole. Now I need to kind of bring myself out of it. So as a good boy artist, I kind of decided, okay, let's kind of deep breaths. Let's see what I can do about this. So first step, I decided to break it down into small consumable pieces and start with the most obvious piece right there in the middle, and that's the acorn. So first thing I did, I made a completely procedural acorn. So many trials and errors, and probably quite possibly the like every wrong way of doing things. Because I was trying to figure out so many things that I completely even disregarded any organization of the graph. I didn't even care about customization. I was only kind of focusing on the result. And the moment I got the result, I was happy. I kind of, okay, like it's an acorn, it looks okay, and I decided to move on. So I was very single focused onto solving a specific problem. I wasn't like really trying to kind of do a big procedural thing, but I did learn many kind of techniques and shortcuts along the way. So it was kind of a proud moment for myself. I built something completely from scratch on my own without any hand holding. Small step for man, big step for mankind. Next thing, okay, now what's the next element? Okay, procedural branches. That was next thing that they did. They ended up looking kind of, I don't know, unnatural. They're all completely straight. I didn't have the skill to make them like more varied in shape, but I could at least control the amount of bark they were on using some specific noises that kind of you can control with a slider the amount of dead bark and the amount of like those knots each branch has. After that, it was kind of easy to wrap things up because making dirt, you're just gonna use and smash a bunch of very scaled noises and rocks of various sizes, and you get some dirt. And then what you do after that is just like start adding those elements on top. And that was a new challenge for me. It was a bit troublesome, like trying to add all those things together. Because I really didn't know all the advanced techniques how to do that. I was just kind of trying to smash all the things together, just like add, and add. And I was like actually like manually trying to find like a random seed which actually kind of fit the best. Not the best use case. It was actually very stupid at the time. And then the leaves. There's like the next layer which I was supposed to kind of add to kind of make everything as close as possible to the reference image as I could. But to be honest, I was kind of getting bored with the project, and I felt incapable as well of making those kind of really good-looking leaves procedurally. So I decided to try out a completely hybrid approach. I took leaf scans from I think it was like Quixel scans back in the day, and I separated like this huge scan of many leaves into like individual elements. Then I kind of splattered them on top, and then added like color variation, and I liked it. I think that, I mean, it looks okay, but you can see like the actual blending of the elements is still not that good. It looks kind of realistic, but it still falls under that kind of uncanny valley thing. But I was super happy. I was kind of confident that I reached the goal that was set to me. But again, like the lessons that I learned on my previous projects, I didn't want to stop where I was supposed to stop. So I made like a rainy version, rainy muddy version, and I also made like a snowy ice version. And okay, now I felt I was done. I kind of took it a little bit further, but I was fed up with the project and I wanted to move on. But I did learn something. I kind of restated my knowledge that like reference is really key. I mean, especially when you're making something from reference, it's easier because like you can analyze and break it down into smaller tasks, and then you can like consume it way more easily and plan ahead. And like and then that methodological approach, like analyze, deconstruct, bin, and they'll assemble, it kind of goes with the point number one, but it's really kind of helped me learn a lot of things along the way, especially the analyze part, because I spend a lot of time like kind of reverse engineering other people's work and seeing how they work, and being able to correctly analyze other people's work will going to help you really grow a lot. And even though that as a project I was happy how the overall that forest floor looked, I didn't really like how the actual like rocks looked in it. So my next task was to try to fill that knowledge hole, because of course every substance artist, well, we need to make it like some rocks at some point as well. It's just kind of, I think it's a part of a texture pride at this point. And mine, especially as a standalone rock texture, at least my first attempt doing something like it, well, wasn't that great as a standalone texture. I think that, like in hindsight, I think it kind of failed to kind of have any defining features as a rock. But I mean, put that let's say undefined texture on some kind of custom geometry, and it can look better. It can look a lot better. Some like geo, some proper lighting, and things change dramatically. So this texture did find its use eventually, but it's not one of my best works. That's for sure. You can see the breakdown here in this GIF if you're interested. So But even though this project was short, I did learn some things from it. I kind of learned that featureless systems are kind of way more versatile. So what does this mean? If you build some textures, any kind of system which is designed for a very specific either shape language or something, it's probably going to be used only for that. But if you build something which is maybe a little bit more ambiguous in the way it looks, I think that you can find the purpose in more than one place. And I found that like mediocre stuff can look good with proper context. And this was a bit of a revelation to me, because at this point I realized that I've been chasing this pipe dream of kind of making these wonderfully crafted materials, but I realized I'm not a material artist. I don't want to be burdened with making the best possible material. I kind of stopped thinking as about materials as an end goal of my project, and start thinking it more as a tools, or as a kind of means to an end. So that inevitably led me kind of using Substance Designer in a ways which was like completely new to me, and like, I think that for even the makers of the tool itself. And it pushed me way more towards experimentation. So what happened? So with that switched mindset, that made me think, what else, for example, can I make if I combine simple textures, mediocre ones, and then maybe some custom models and like nice displacement, lighting, whatnot. So I tried to play with that idea. I had this phase where I was trying to do like completely procedural abstract art, completely done in Substance Designer. There's actually screenshots from Substance Designer rendered in Iray. So I was like adding emissive materials. I was rendering in Iray. I was actually playing with light, shapes, composition. I was focusing more on the overall look of the work and not on the materials itself. I was trying like different post effects, just kind of experimenting, driving with the flow, trying what works, what doesn't works. And since you're kind of experimenting with procedural assets, I mean, you could use the same mesh and materials, but just distort them or twist them in a like simple twist in a different way, and get something completely different looking. I mean, you can see like these triangle shapes are basically the same. The same textures as here. It's just kind of twisted and with some metallic stuff around. And then like even I was used to make what I did, I made like some procedural meshes in 3D Studio Max, and then displaced with some textures from Designer. And then I was actually going back and forth. The live link works pretty well. I could Alt tab to Max, twist the mesh in a different way, save it, go back to Designer, and automatically kind of reload and update. It was really fast way to play around. I suggest you try it. It's really like you can experiment very, very fast. So I even actually did something which still to this day I think it's very strange. I did some graphic design experiments, like 2D graphic design experiments in a tool which was made to make like materials and textures. So I was doing these kind of graphic design posters. Just to kind of say, like, these are not my designs. I was recreating somebody else's work. Designs in hand were done by, I think, Diana Chlevniak on the left side and Maquidel Lopez on the right side. Why was I recreating somebody else's work? Well, I had this idea that I wanted to test it out, and I actually didn't want to create something. I just wanted to see if something could be done, or how hard can it be done. I wanted to test, if I can use Substance Designer as a graphic design tool. I kind of figured out, I mean, it has design in its name. It should be kind of usable. So I did this to kind of recreate things. And even after that, I tried using Designer, similar fashion, but kind of also implementing animation on top of that as well. So I kind of tried prototyping UI animations, like transitions, using the time variable in Designer. I just kind of make one variable that goes from like 0 to 100, and I just tie all that to that one float. It's just like your time segment. I don't know. It's a very crazy thing to do. The workflow is far from being great, and I'm still hoping that we'll get some kind of proper animation control soon in Designer. I've been advocating for that for some time now. You can see actually like the breakdowns of both posters here in these GIFs. You can see how I made them. It was a really nice experience for me. So I learned that procedural tools are they are like way more than what they seem. It's just like you have a box of tools, and you can use them in any way that you can or want. So you should try always to kind of get out of that box and use tools in unexpected ways, because when you experiment, I really think that's like the experimentation. That is where all the happy accidents live, and you should do that because you never know when you're gonna kind of strike gold. Or find something which is really, really, really cool that you might use one day in some projects. But while I was playing like graphic design, people were really kind of advancing the other parts, like the proper part of Substance Designer. They're like doing all this kind of 3D texture modeling inside Designer. It was crazy, crazy, crazy cool. So eventually that pushed me back to, let's say, regular usages. And I wanted to see if I could kind of build a scene with just procedural textures. So I was thinking to myself, what kind of a scene would be a good fit to something that is nice for procedural generation? And library kind of came to mind rather fast. I mean, if you look at bookshelves, they have the variety, they have kind of the interesting variety to themselves, but they do have like a very organized structure to them. So I set up myself on this task to kind of make first like only like a bookend generator. And it did spend a lot of time like setting up many, possibly too many parameters that you can change in this kind of bookend generator. You could change like color, book name, even ornaments on the spine, even the shape of the book spine, how many like those line segments it has. Like the amount of variation that you could get from this was really, 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 really high. So as you can see here, that is just like a small part of the variation that you could get from that one generated tool. So it gave me a lot of variation, but since things were kind of built procedurally, I could also kind of dive in and even like do details. So I could, even though I had variation, I could build it to a micro detail that I could actually generate like the small wrinkles in the book spines that you can see on the right, even like make it feel like it's engraved, or even down to like the how the surface of the kind of leather binding looked like. So having that, I managed to build a completely procedural library. And once I had this system in place, I mean, once you have the system set up, since it's procedural, it's very easy to get variation. So from that one system, that after I could make the library, I started playing with the same things I used to play when I was doing abstract experiments. I used to play with lighting, compositions, just to see what else can I spit out of this one system. And as always, it's kind of very, very fun to play around. So the things I learned from this project, and I think it was one of the very important lessons that I learned, that it's okay to take shortcuts. It's okay to be pragmatical. I'm not of a purist kind. I don't have to make everything completely procedurally from scratch. I really think that nobody has to. I mean, you should. Every time that you work, you should choose your battles. I treated a lot, for example, while making this actual project. I didn't actually kind of procedurally make any of those specific decorative shapes. I kind of just imported them from decorative fonts. The bookshelf itself is not a part of the same like Substance Designer material. It was generated, although procedurally, but it was generated in Max because that was kind of easier and faster for me to do. And the actual distribution of books, that was very tricky for me to do via textures in Designers, because I wanted like slight tilts of the books leaning onto each other and stuff and whatnot. So I didn't have the skills to do it in Designer, so I just did it in Max by like doing like particle systems and some fake physics and whatnot. So to this day, I still believe like being like pragmatical and practical in the work is a really good thing to do. These are like some of the base meshes that you can see for those libraries. I mean, you can see it's very kind of, they look ridiculous if you look them from afar, but once you like start diving in and adding those books, it kind of makes for the interesting shapes. But I kind of I wasn't gonna stop there. I wanted to like combine my love with custom meshes even further. So again, while I was kind of playing the librarian, other artists were actually kind of starting to model things in designers with textures and displacement, and I really wanted to kind of be better at that as well. I wanted to join that hype wave because it looked to me as an incredible and versatile technique. But coming from that library project, maybe even the bigger problem for me was actually like the actual distribution of the elements. It was still bugging me. I couldn't kind of solve the distribution while I was doing the library. So I wanted to kind of make a project where I could maybe tackle both modeling and distribution at the same time. So that's where this Stone Pond project kind of came to life. So I quickly managed to actually model it. I mean, this is just if you look at this, this is like one plane with a texture and displacement on it. Like there is two triangles of geometry here. Everything else is displacement and tessellation. So I quickly did manage to model something. It's actually rather easy to model something like this in Designer. But I did spend a lot of time trying to understand how to fit those pieces better together. That's kind of the thing that kind of foreshadowed me from a long time, even from that first project with the forest floor. So I was really kind of trying to make the arrangement feel natural. I really wanted to kind of learn like where will the leaves flow, how will the smaller green leaves be around the flowers, how will the leaves kind of cram into small places, and that kind of sort of thing. Try to kind of mimic the let's say the randomness, the beautiful randomness of nature. And I was like, trying to understand all those rules, and these are kind of the experiments. I built maybe a system which was even maybe too complex at one point to handle and control. But as you can see, I really liked the variations they get. It like the distribution of elements really felt, and the clustering of elements, it felt organic. I felt good. I felt like that I kind of tried to analyze the nature itself, going back to also one of the learnings that I mentioned, and I was able to kind of try to mimic what it does. So I like the pond very much that I even kind of did a small video. I was kind of aiming for that like atmospheric stop motion look, but I was too lazy to animate the bird, to be honest. Even though I'm a generalist, I'm not that good of an animator yet. Maybe if like procedural animation becomes super a thing one day, I'm gonna switch to that, I promise. But this was just like a quick look development project, which I felt was interesting. As you can see here, the pond here is not squared, it's circle, because it was just on one click, I could like change the start distribution shape and go from a square to circle. So while you're watching the actual breakdown of the elements of how I made the pond on the left side, I will share my thoughts on what I learned on this project. I actually learned that something maybe that I already know, but I kind of proved it finally to myself. That yes, you can actually model with Substance Designer. It can be used for that, and you can like render that. After that, you can even with a little bit more hassle even convert that to a game ready model. But I also learned to me that like even though it's all kind of procedural, generation, distribution were completely different kind of problems. And I realized that when you're building like procedural systems or procedural artwork, that you can actually choose like, do you want to maybe do more of generation or distribution or both? I think it's like a slider that you can drag and like decide. Going back to my sentiment that you should choose your battles. So while I was analyzing the nature and kind of trying to learn organic patterns and how it behaves, I was actually really looking at a lot of like mushrooms and tree barks and how they grow. So I kind of thought that actually kind of mushroom, like a tree bark, would be a nice thing to tackle next. Like actually try to build something which is way more organic. So I've been doing rocks, I've been doing forest floors and ponds and bookshelves. I wanted to try something which is more organic. Felt as a nice challenge. And I was kind of wanted to actually to make a tree bark. You can see the breakdown here. Because tree barks to me are like a wonderful looking things. There are so many different shapes, sizes, colors. They're like procedurally generated nature things. I love tree barks. My approach was kind of to make a single piece of bark and then tile it around in different layers and sizes. And after that, I kind of dissect it into like a thin layers, the final height map, and then like I build the color based on those thin layers. On the left side here, we can see the breakdown of the actual bark, me building the one single element, and then kind of tiling it around. And the right-hand side, you can see the actual how I build that procedural mushroom. Stefan, I'm hearing some noise in the background. I'm not sure if that is also okay. I'm moving on. So I quite liked the results. This is actually that texture displacement on a very simple cylinder. I felt it looked really good, even at close-up. I mean, like the lighting does add a lot to the general look, but I felt like I managed to kind of reach the goal that I was aiming for myself. And of course, since I got a tree, of course I'm gonna make to build a forest as well. It's the kind of natural progress of things. But what happened is that I really didn't like it that much. At one point, kind of felt to me that more trees I added, the worse it looked. To the day, I still don't know why. I haven't like really kind of thought about it that much. Probably because like it was like one texture, and then you could see maybe the repetition, and it couldn't really control some things that they wanted to control. So I even tried like using that same texture on something which is completely different, maybe even more whimsical. That's the same tree bark texture, just without the mushroom layer. Also didn't work for me. Tried that approach as well. Maybe I don't know. I generally like this approach. Maybe I will take it further one day, but definitely not with this texture. Not. So I decided to take a step back, kind of referring all again to the lessons that I learned, like actually going back to my abstract art times, and decided to focus on a simple thing and focus more on a composition, like maybe like the emotional value of the piece itself. This is a screenshot from Marmoset. It's like the base geometry that they use to add textures and displacement, and this was the final piece. Which I am quite proud of. I really like it to this day. It's one of like more. It's one of my most fun pieces that I ever did. I don't know. Every time I look at it, just calms me down. And it was done completely procedurally as well. Even the meshes that you see here are like procedural meshes. Yeah, I start with like one spline, then I twist it, then I loft some circles around it, then I define the taper along the length. So I can easily change the numbers of the length and whatnot. But yeah, that was kind of the end of that project. Things that I learned at this point. I can learn that like personal projects are super important, and I cannot emphasize this like large enough. They're important for everything in my mind. Because I use them like to experiment. I use them to adopt new tools. I use them to make something that I want, without the burden of art directors, without the burden of marketing decisions, technical optimizations, whatnot. I think the personal projects are like they're in a sense like a complete technical and creative freedom, and I also believe that they can like heavily impact every artist's growth. And during this project, I started being like an active part of communities. And I really think that being part of a community, I mean, just being here today, already doing that, it's a must. I think it's really a must for an artist in the industry these days. I think you should really kind of trying to find people, at least kind of try to do things together, learn together, share, but be an active part of some community. It'll find a community that feels strong to you, and then like just kind of be active in it. You can learn from others. You can teach. You can learn. You can make friends, and at least you can be like informed. Because I have this like very personal but strong belief that success in like gaming industry or VFX industry is not really about skill. I think it's more about like being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, and like being part of communities will really help you with that. And I really think that like combine those two things, that every artist should make their own self-improvement plans. Like use all of that. Use personal projects, use experimentation, use communities to make your self-improvement plans. Organize them however you wish. I mean, they should be completely catered and personalized. I do my own every time differently. I plan them in like long term and short term, but I usually have like one single goal that I want to achieve. Even if the projects are short term, they all kind of feed into one a little bit long term goal. I think that even like those self-improvement plans are a great tool to keep like your momentum and focus as well. So do them, like write them down, do them, and iterate. Like if they don't work, change it and then try again. It should be a live thing. So let's kind of switch a little bit, switch tracks, because I've been talking about personal projects. I want to show you how all of that personal projects kind of fed back into my professional commercial work. And I'm gonna like talk about Nordeus and like procedural things that I did there. So at one point we were like doing this whole rebrand of the company, when we like decided to kind of change the logo, go do a completely new brand book, brand bible, whatnot. And I was kind of like involved a bit in that project. For example, I was creating a lot of like these displacement textures that you see here applied to one of the logo propositions back then. Most of these things were kind of done procedurally in Designer, then just applied as alphas in ZBrush to kind of try to build this monumental black and white feel for some of the logos. Or either like I was just doing some look development for the logos itself. It's like ridiculously easy to build this kind of like patterns, like logo patterns in Substance Designer. Whatever the logo is, you can just like change the input texture, tweak some parameters, and just get something and work on it. So I was making these patterns. I was actually making like logo shaped caves. This is actually the reuse of that like rock texture that I showed at the beginning. And at one point, at the end of the project, when we were like supposed to kind of do the big unveil of the logo to the company, I did this kind of a promotional animation for the new logo, which combined a lot of procedural techniques that I learned up until then, but not only for texturing, but also for animation as well, because this project kind of pushed me to start learning Houdini and procedural modeling, like to kind of tackle that side of procedural art and procedural approach. This is just a part of that like long animation that was played in house just for the employees. I think you can probably find the whole one. I think like Nordeus Vimeo or something like that. So like armed with all that knowledge, now switching back to game stuff. I mean, Substance was really kind of proving more and more useful each day. I was like constantly preaching like these are tools are awesome. You should try this for that and for it. And for example, like we were making this fantasy mobile game called Heroic for years, and we changed so many pipelines. But this game, since it's like a magic game, it had a lot of real-time VFX shots, spells, magics, weapons, projectiles. Even like the UI elements had a lot of VX, and there was just VFX all over the games. And if you're familiar with kind of real-time VFX production, you probably then know like the quality of that real-time VFX is kind of mostly dependent on the texture it is using. And that especially kind of doubles down and goes for mobile games. Because the level of the optimization, technical optimization, which is needed for mobile games is so high, like that every like VFX in mobile games is just usually like a texture scrolling over a very simple mesh or particle system with billboard textures. So a couple of years back, we used to make like all of these textures for VFX by hand in Photoshop, and it was okay if you had to draw something which is like a projectile, But if you want to like slide a texture over a mesh, it needs to tile, and then like going in Photoshop and like manually tile every time that you want to change something or make a texture tileable, it was troublesome. It was taking out precious time out of maybe some other more creative tasks that we could have been doing. But not anymore. We have completely adopted Designer for that workflow, and in Designer you get tileable textures by default for free, whatever you do. And then like we make all these kind of small textures. We can easily change them because they're procedural, and then we combine them together inside the engine in many ways. You can see here just some like very small part of some of the textures that we ended up using inside of the game. There were hundreds of textures done by really like incredible artists to make all the VFX. I think you can go on YouTube and just see how the VFX looks in that game. I think it's really really good. Modest opinion, but I really think it's good. So this kind of like another example of me testing this first on a personal project, and then bringing it and showing it to the team, because I also believe, actually I have a lot of beliefs. I believe it's always better to kind of show than tell, always. This is kind of the project that I personally did, which kind of inspired us to use more Substance Designer in our texturing process than before. And now we have a lot of like VFX in game that use that. These are just kind of small parts, like that spells, spell circles, transmutations, whatnot. And one of the maybe bigger use cases of Substance Designers that we use for that game is like this world map generator. The original idea was actually made by one of the like real Substance Designer masters. It's a guy called Clark Kutz. You should check him out. He does incredible stuff. But we like heavily modified and kind of expanded it quite a lot to kind of cater our own thing. And it is kind of somewhat of a hybrid system. If you remember, like I already discussed about like differentiation between generation and distribution. So in this case, like we don't procedurally generate each element. So what happened here is that our concept guys just draw out like individual elements, for example, like trees, mountains, and like in a couple of variations. And then we plug them into Substance Designer. What we do is we just generate the world and then populate that world with the custom-made elements. So as you can see in this sample, on a very high level, everything is like driven by a very simple like one node. So you paint, like you can try to art direct where you want your land, where you want your land masses, continents and whatnot. So wherever it's white, that's where the land should be, and wherever it's black, that defaults to water. So this is kind of the iteration that we had. It didn't have all the controls actually that we wanted. It was very difficult to like art direct to the details that we perhaps wanted. But it was just the first iteration, and we planned to add more controls, but as you will see later, we kind of scrapped these 2D lookup maps at one point, so we never actually came back to expand this tool. But you might wonder, like, why the format of the map is so wide. It's because in the game that map used to, doesn't anymore since like maybe 2-3 months ago, looks like this. So it's like a horizontally scrollable backdrop for a milestone progression. And since this is Designer, and since all the textures are tileable, basically this like infinite world has like only 4 textures which like repeat seamlessly, and then you can like scroll to your heart content. And there are also like some other elements here as well. You can see in the corner those clouds. I mean, those the VFX that I talked a couple of minutes ago. And this is, I'm going to show you a little bit how it looks behind the scenes. It's just like rotating cylinders with simple meshes and texture that just rotates. It's an illusion, nothing more. Like most of the things when you make them. And since it's the map, it's actually just the backdrop for a lot of like UI elements and those kind of milestone flags. you don't really notice that the textures are repeating because they're not in the focus. On the modeling side of the game, so at one point I was doing this proof of concept since I came very hyped about the potential of Houdini in game production some years back. And I started to kind of work on this level builder for our game because it seemed like a nice problem to solve. Because the concept of the game as it is, while you watch here, like the breakdown, the environments are fixed. Like the camera of the game is fixed. It has fixed amount of battle lanes. So it felt like a contained problem that I could actually solve. So I was working on how to procedurally kind of sculpt things like wood and rock, and then how to tackle the distribution later. And I was playing around as well with the level of control, like should things be distributed completely automatically, or you could say here painted in, then physics simulates them. And then some very specific game problems as well, like imposter cards for the grass, automatic UVs, proper overlap in the baking. I even kind of tried to automate the texturing part completely itself, just by using ID maps and smart materials in Substance Painter. But that didn't turn out that good. That's probably the part where I spent the least amount of time. This was a proof of concept, but I think I really liked it because you can see here, I'm using voxels to just kind of sculpt the tree. And then on a click, I can automatically bake that to normal maps and have it imported in the game. Then I can choose the type of the separator. I can select one element and decide if I want it to break, how much will it break, and in which way should it break. Then I can work on the floor. I can just use any of the textures that I make, for example, in Substance Designer, to kind of displace the floor. But I can add even more variation using noises. I can select a different texture if I don't like this one. And it's a really fast and iterative way of work. And on a click, as you can see here, this is actual screenshot from the game. I just kind of click a button within less than 2 minutes, everything cooks and it's pushed to the projects, and I can actually play the game itself. So the idea was not just to enable us to build these environments faster. The idea was also to kind of make a tool which will enable game designers to iterate faster, because if they can change the look or the rule sets or the battlefields, then maybe they can as well be faster at their job. But what happened? I never finished this project. It's still at the stage as you see it here. It was basically scrapped because by the point we started experimenting with this, we already had I think already 10 environments made for the game, and in the foreseeable future there was no need for additional ones. So we kind of just put that project on the shelf and decided to tackle some others more important things. I was really sad because I really wanted to finish. Maybe one day we will revisit this. But nevertheless, that game project then fed back to my personal work. So you see this theme of me learning personal things and then bring it back to my professional environment, then learning things there and then bring it back to my personal projects. I love this kind of feedback loop. I think it's really powerful. So that game project kind of pushed me down the road, completely down the road of Houdini and procedural modeling. So this one of the first kind of just assets that I completely procedurally modeled in Houdini. It was kind of so cool to kind of do that, I wanted to kind of tackle myself to build something in this way. You can see the breakdown here, the entire graph of how I built this flower. It took me some time. It took me, I think, almost a full week to kind of nail this down. But I was happy. I kind of felt the same learning cycle as I had when I was learning designer. It takes a little bit of investment up front, but once you kind of start learning the process, the workflows, things really quickly pick up. And these are kind of some of the renders that I did of that flower, and kind of just goes to say that I was constantly experimenting of how I work. I was trying different workflows all the time. I was trying to make things completely fully procedurally, like the flower that you see here. And also I was trying as well hybrid approaches whenever I can, taking shortcuts and cheating. just for like concepting, as a concepting tool as well. As you can see in this work here. So you'll see here on the breakdown, I was working on this piece, and then the one head is actual character that we made for the game. The second head is a open source scan of a sculpture. But then I wanted to kind of make this duality of a guy who has like his. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it about now, but his head is burning. Then I put his head on fire, but I converted the actual flame simulation into a mesh, so it's way more solid. And I decided what I'm going to do next. It was just like experimenting, trying to build a story, trying to build a character, and learn the tools at the same way. But I also wanted to tackle something which is kind of more on a bigger scale as well. So not just like individual busts or flowers. So one of my latest environmental pieces, this piece is completely procedural, except the character in the front. So I wanted to tackle something on a different scale because like this is probably somewhere where distribution is way more important than the actual generation. As you can see here on the rest, you can see the actual layout of the environment itself, and everything here was done in Houdini. The terrain, the crystals, the distribution, the rendering itself actually was done in V-Ray with a little bit of composite in Photoshop, and you can see a little bit of a breakdown here. How I kind of build the crystals and how I build the structures to hold them and to distribute them. This is the part of creating a valley and then like eroding and terracing it to get that environment. Then I choose which parts of the environment I want to kind of use for distribution of elements, and I make the elements flow, make them kind of follow the slopes to build everything. And I really liked this piece in the end. I think this piece was actually even like at one point selected for some exhibition in New York. That was a nice confirmation. So that, and then at one point, while I was doing all these experiments, I was kind of constantly getting invited, especially by Substance, to be involved in their kind of alpha and beta testing programs, which was nice. I was being able to kind of experiment with new toys, and they got feedback and early test results for me. So that's kind of where kind of Project Alchemist came into place. This was some like. This was a better part of the last year. So I kind of made a sidestep here because in this project, it wasn't about what I could like generate. It was more what I could like extract. So what Alchemist basically does, I mean, it's kind of meant for like blending materials. But one of its strong suits is just like you feed it the tool with like a single photograph, ideally in some overcast light conditions. Then it tries to extract texture data from it. It's nothing like new, but it's really powerful. I mean, because for just one photo you can get all the maps like height, albedo, glossiness, normal, and stuff like that. You can see here that it is just like the photos I took in front of my building, and like I quickly converted them, and then you can even like blend them together to get something. So you hop outside, you take a couple of photos, you extract the materials from every individual photo, then you mix them procedurally, and then you can like randomly generate different mixes, and you basically get a tileable material out of it in 10 to 15 minutes, which is pretty cool because like in order to get something like this made from scratch, the designer, it will take you a lot more time. Yes, you have more control, but then it's a trade-off as well. So while I was testing, I also wanted to like, what can I do not from photos? What can I just like grab of the internet and then start mixing? So you can see here, like, I just grabbed a couple of dirt and rocks and pebble photos, and like literally within 15 minutes, I got this styleable like dirt material with pebbles and footsteps and whatnot. Felt like magic, and since, as I already told you, I'm not a material artist, so I wasn't thinking about parameters. I wasn't thinking about customization. I was only kind of thinking about end results. And this was like perfect tool for me just to experiment. So that pushed me into this whole big project called the material marathon. So what I did is I made 100 materials in 100 days. This is probably like the biggest self-improvement planned project that I already did. Like I said, I like to plan these things ahead, and I kind of bite the bullet on this one. I decided to let's go the whole 9 yards, like actually 100 yards in this case. And I decided to kind of able to test the tool properly. I decided I'm going to make a material each day for 100 days. And actually, I made them in 115 or something or so. I had to rest sometimes. Even I have social life now and then. And I made so many of these, like too many actually, as you can see here. Like this is like mixed terracotta with asphalts on top and whatnot. Here I started with this kind of photograph of this metallic fence or roof. I don't know what it is, but I extracted only height information from it. Then I started blending it on top a lot of metallic materials like paints, metallic panels, rusts, to get this kind of metallic panely rusty. So I tried these kind of very straightforward approaches, but I also tried something which was like not so obvious, like making rocks from a giraffe. I like the pattern that the giraffe was making. It's like a very like organic Verdoni pattern. So I want to see like what can I extract from that. Like if I extract high data, then combine itself with multiple layers, then mixing maybe some dust on top of it, maybe I can get something which is not a giraffe, but still originate from it. Like I said, like experimentation is the place where lucky accidents live. This was the final result for that material. And then some materials were kind of very different in complexity. Sometimes I would use more than one photo, of course, to get what I need. For example, here I took a photo of the location. I took a photo of these like base wood stumps, some kind of a paving. But I downloaded a photo of this charcoal from online, and I extracted them as separate materials, and then I combined them together with some kind of dust elements, like dark asphalts, to get this, which kind of felt was like a charred tree stumps. And I felt like the quality that you can extract from these was kind of rather impressive. So I use a lot of dirt filters and whatnot to get the final look, but you can still see the influence of both of the original photos that I got. But sometimes I was actually not experimenting. I was actually building a material where I exactly knew what I was doing. So that gave me kind of lucky chance to kind of build the individual elements first as a separate materials, which I did in this case. So these small fossils, they were individually extracted and cleaned up from the photos. And then each one of those fossils was then splattered on top of this kind of rocky material to build the major shapes. Then I splattered the small ones for the smaller shapes, and just like building those kind of layers and ending it up, like going even more subtle every time that I add things, and like mixing it with dirt and whatnot to get this final result. So it felt really good because just from one photo you can get a lot of surface details, and then on a click I will get like a completely random and different distribution of the elements in this material. Sometimes I would like extract one tile from a photo, but then every time I tile it, I change a little bit. So even though I have just like one piece of a tile, it doesn't look that repetitive. So I get better variation in tiles with custom masks for each one. You can see like final result for this kind of wood Versailles panels. I think these are Versailles panels or something like that. Similar approach here. I started with just kind of one shot of this. I don't know, have no idea what it is, kind of marble grate or floor or whatnot. But I started with this. I tiled it, but I also rotated it every time. Then I wanted to mix in some like brass and gold to even get more surface variation. And it was like building up control and building up details to get something which is this. And like these are just some of the other ones. If anybody like is really interested into all 100 of them, you can just go to my art station and check them all. There's like a bunch of them. They vary in quality. Sometimes I spent like 15 minutes doing a material. Sometimes I would even spend like up to an hour. It's still like rather fast, but I liked how they ended up looking. And these are like all 100 of them. So what did I learn from this very, very big project? Well, this was a very unique personal project for me. Yes, it was very long. It was like the longest personal project that I did, but to be honest, it was very manageable because it had very, very clear and very small daily goals. So it wasn't kind of that troublesome. But it was quite an emotional and like creative roller coaster. But it did end on a really high note with nothing but positive feelings. But it was difficult kind of to maintain the creativity and whatnot, like to just come up with idea for a new material every other day. I tried sometimes like doing them in batches, but then just releasing them day by day. So I was, like I said, like if something doesn't work, change it immediately. So I was trying to be flexible with this. But it was also very, very kind of difficult for me to contain myself. As you remember, I kind of told you that you shouldn't stop, never step at the end of the tutorial, always kind of go a step further. So it's really kind of hard for me to time box myself and go that extra step, because every time I came to a point of the material that I liked, I wanted to add some more. I wanted to tinker a little bit more, try some new things. But I knew I kind of tried to persuade me not to do that because I knew that would just kind of change my focus and ruin the entire project. So in the end, what kind of inevitably happened, I kind of think that like doing this project, I definitely improved my material making skills like drastically. That wasn't the intent, to be honest, but it did happen nevertheless. And now I kind of transfer that knowledge to everything else I do. So I wasn't making these materials for any specific use. I didn't have a plan for them. I just wanted to kind of experiment and make a huge volume of them for the sake of training and testing the tool. But it did find many uses eventually, to be honest. One of the uses is I made this kind of very short intro video for one of the announcements for the tools itself. It kind of felt as a kid I used to play a lot with marbles. All these spheres will remind me a lot about marbles, so I went with this direction for them. Actually, it was actually done in Houdini, by the way. And I still use like most of those materials even today, mostly for practicing lighting. Lighting is probably the one thing that I'm trying to learn to do better now. And these materials and their surface variations like really help me kind of test out different lighting scenarios, or even when it's just like need some materials to test out an idea that they have. Some of the materials actually ended up in the game itself. This is like a quick promotional banner that we did for some of the shop elements, which was nice. I had something that I could reuse from all the personal projects. And what actually happened is I actually gave all the materials for free. So if you go to my ArtStation or Gumroad, you can download all of them for free. Sadly, they're not source files because Alchemist back then was like they had a new version every couple of days, and every time the new version came, it broke backwards compatibility. So I don't have like all the source files for these materials. But what you can find for free is the I think that like all texture maps are like 2K tileable. So use them as you wish, enjoy them. Only thing that that you must do is that if you make something cool with these materials, you have to show it to me because I'm really curious if you're actually going to do something like that. I think these materials like by now are like downloaded over like 50,000-60,000 times. So I just wanted, and then what happened? Like this year, we started like redesigning the better part of the heroic game. We kind of noticed that a lot of the features that are missing, so we kind of spent 3 months on this huge effort. The entire team really rolled up their sleeves to bring a lot of new content to the game. And without all this knowledge, without all these techniques that myself and a lot of other people in the company have learned in the last couple of years, we would never be able to do the amount of volume of the work that we did in the last 3 months for the game. Mind that like the entire art team is 6-7 people, and not all of them that's like UI artists, VFX artists, and generalists. So like these workflows really enabled us as a small team to do a lot of things. I just want to showcase some of the things that we did for the latest iteration of the heroic game. These items are kind of one of them because we tried to shift the game more into like fantasy roleplay mechanics, and we needed to have like a bunch of items that you can equip to your heroes. And since at the time we were operating in 2-week sprints, so basically for this entire feature, we had 10 days to make everything. And we had to make 162 items, renders of items in 10 days. And since like they were bound to like specific hero, we kind of decided, okay, let's see what we can do here, what we can cheat, what we cannot cheat. So what we ended up doing is we just kind of reused any or all the models that we already had in the game, and then we just sculpted all the rest that we could. We didn't care about topology, we didn't care about UVs or anything. In the end, we piped all those sculpts through Houdini, where we did like automatic retopology to something which was more like, I don't know, maybe something like mid poly, not that low poly, and automatic UVs. Then that was piped into Substance Designer, where we like quickly did all the baking, and all the texturing was also done rather fast, almost automatically, with the smart materials that we pre-built for every kind of class of the item. Some things were done manually, like masks were hand painted, where we kind of blended different materials. And rendering itself is actually the rendering was done in Marmoset. We had a specific light rig for every hero kind of to match the color scheme of the hero itself. But the rendering was also really fast. Like it's Marmoset is a real-time engine, so you get the render immediately. Like these are some of the sculpts that we did. We all kind of tried to sculpt from the camera that was important. So we had like crowns, head ornaments, boots, shields, whatnot. And this kind of level of detail that we managed to get out of it, which I think was really cool. And we kind of like trying to kind of match the style of the hero, but also have a sense of a visual progression in the items themselves. And these are all the items that we made for the game, and they're like displayed as cards in the UI, so you like equip them and whatnot. You don't see them in game in the actual like gameplay, so that was like lucky for us because we didn't have to build the actual low poly models. Next thing was maps. This kind of takes me back to that 2D Substance Designer map I was talking about, and why that project was why that style was scrapped. So we wanted to kind of push more of that because the whole game was 3D. We wanted to push the 3D look in the maps itself. And again, like we were operating in 2-week sprint, we were on a very tight deadline, and we had to make like 25 maps in those like 10 working days, even less because you had to leave like at least a day or two for implementation. So here we opted for a hybrid workflow. So what's interesting here is that like the initial, like the first frame you see of this GIF, that initial land mass volume, like that was manually sculpted. Like we want to like have like specific art direction of where the kind of land masses are. So that part was manually sculpted. Then the entire mesh processing, the entire like terrain generation was completely done in Houdini with height fields. All the erosions and terracing and the deformation, everything was done in Houdini. And in the end, we export only the texture maps from Houdini and all the masks itself. Because when you're like doing terrain modeling in Houdini, you get all these really nice masks. For example, you see the red color there. That's one of the masks. So the masks are like where the water is flowing, where the debris is, where the sediment has collected, and stuff like that. So as a final step, we took all those exported textures from Houdini. We plugged them into Substance Designer, where we actually build. We take mostly the height map and the masks, and we build the actual texture in Substance Designer, and then we just render it with displacement. And then we add all the color variation, even though the finite, like very kind of small details, were added in Designer itself. And rendering was actually again done in Marmoset because it has a really nice displacement rendering. It is like the final look of the maps. These maps, like the purpose of them, so they were not actually they were rendered as 3D in the game, but they were not actual models in the game. So we could just like render them and use them as a backdrop. And we had, I think, like 4 variations of biomes, and each of that biome, like dusty or like foresty, or the icy ones, each one has like specific template, both in Houdini for the type of terrain that we want, and in Designer for the type of color that we want. So once we had those systems in place, well, the actual like turnaround time from that initial sculpt to the final image is actually now the system is around like 15 minutes. So once you do the sculpt, you run it through Houdini, you run it through Designer, you plug it into Marmoset. From that sculpt to the image like this, it's literally 15 minutes, which was like incredible. These are, I think, most of the maps that were in the game in the end. And one more thing that probably the biggest challenge that we had were these kind of achievement badges. So why was this big? Because this is something that you should that you collect in the game, that you earn in the game. They should have like this feeling that you want to collect them. But the problem is that we had to make a lot of them in a really, really short time, and they should all look good. So we were thinking like, okay, we had like cheated a lot, but what else can we cheat? We wanted to kind of build some kind of generative production workflow, but they can be as fast as possible. So we decided to like completely remove unwrapping, texturing, and even like rendering from the pipeline, and like fake whatever we can. So how did we actually do that? So the entire powerhouse of the whole effort were actually height maps in Substance Designer. And there is this node in Substance Designer, which is called PBR render node. So what that node actually does, you plug in the height map, you plug in your textures, and you plug in an HDR like environment, and then it kind of renders it. It's not completely fake render. It looks really, really good, as you can see here, but it's not rendering itself. It kind of just generates it there in Substance Designer as a node. And the cool thing is that we just utilize height maps. So we could use any alpha from ZBrush. We could make height map from any model that we already had. What we also did is we built a small like shield generator in Substance Designer. We just kind of generated 100 variations of shields. Most of them you already see here in the backgrounds, and then we just like pipe it through. You can see a breakdown here. So it's just like isometric top-down look on the height map. You add details, you add your lighting environment, and you just plug it into a node, and like within a second, you get what you need. And this was like really, really cool for us because for the elements that we didn't have the height maps that we wanted, we just like sculpted or upresed any model that we had for the in-game, and then again we used Houdini to bake all the necessary height maps. That was automatic. And we managed to make like really, really fast all the badges in game. This was like a really, really cool project. We tried out something completely new. We took a risk, and it paid off. So in general, like overarching statements, some kind of wisdom for the end. Yes, like doing things this way has its problems, of course. The initial investment is really high because you need to build those tools and those systems in order for you to work this way. And like in the end of the day, it is a tech thing. It is a way more tactical thing. Not all artists will be comfortable working this way, but that doesn't mean that they should. It just means that you should like give them support they need to operate this way. And once you start abusing the system that you made, the patterns will emerge, and then things will start to look less good because you will start noticing the same things over and over again. And it has this problem of sometimes being very hard to redirect things, because you really want to be very careful which parts of the systems you really want to kind of let the computer generate, and where you want to as an artist interfere. Because if you interfere too much, then you're gonna have a very complex system with many parameters that you probably won't be able to easily handle. But it has its benefits. I think they're very clear. Flexibility of the system, even the modularity. If you build like a small tool that solves a problem on some project or on some feature, you can like easily just connect it and transfer it to another place. And iteration speed is crazy. That's the best thing, because you can quickly iterate and go through the bad ones and select the good ones. And on top of that, it's usually almost like exclusively non-destructive. So you don't worry about the mistakes that you make. You can always go back and fix things. So that kind of really enables you to deal with both volume, high amounts of volume, and consistency as well. So final thoughts. I think that like we all know that like the games are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So the demand of content is even today like ridiculously high, and it's only going to get higher. This is not something like which is like new news, but I think that as soon as you or your companies or teams adopt at least some parts of this system, it will make your lives easier. And what I noticed, especially in mobile gaming, in the last like 5 years, I noticed this trend that the companies are making this shift towards small teams with generalists, and knowing these kinds of tools is really gonna empower those kinds of teams. But like I know this is all kind of looks magical and good. You should use all the tools, but you should also kind of be smart about it. By the end of the day, it is about art and content, and not about the tools. Okay, I think that's basically it for me today. I hope this was kind of interesting. It's kind of journey of my personal development and how I brought back to the company, and the vice versa. You can see my contacts here. Generally, I'm a very talkative and chatty kind of a guy. I like to meet new people and discuss things. So if you have any thoughts, ideas, if you have any different opinions as well, feel free to kind of contact me at any point. And also like sharing and talking about the work that I do. So if you like to hear more about some specific thing that you saw here today, also feel free to ping me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stefan, for this opportunity, man.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you, really, because you've made an amazing talk. So we're about to change screens and go to the chat room and ask your questions. An amazing presentation. So I have a question. Also, I think that the UI animation was amazing, really, and as well as your progress. Really, when I saw your presentation last year, I was motivated to use Substance Designer, but I had a bunch of stuff to work on, and I had to stop learning Substance Designer. And now I think I will start again after this presentation, because what I've seen now in the presentation was mind blowing. So you can see it now, and also before you can read the questions. Thanks again, HugoDesk, for supporting us and for the subs. Really, I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the stream on 15th of May. So Nikola, you can read the questions. They are marked with question.
Okay, cool. Question. Do you want me to read first or just answer? Okay, cool. Question. First of all, awesome talk. Well, thank you very much. Inspired me to revisit an old project of mine, and I did back a couple of years ago. Yes, you should that. If you really feel strong about the project, do revisit it. I think it will be good for you, both as a kind of a reflection method, so to see how much you have progressed since then. I'm have a big guess that you will be pleasantly surprised. And it's also nice for once in a while maybe to update projects so you have a better stuff in your portfolio. And especially if you feel something really good about the project, or you feel that you left some things unfinished, you should go and do that. Question. Do you think that Quixel is already overshadowing Designer in terms of making materials since their whole library is free now? I think that Quixel is awesome. I love it. Everything that kind of improves the community and gives people more stuff to work on, I'm all up for that. Even though they are like basically competitive products, they do some things the same way, but other things are not the same. So I think that, like, this is just a personal opinion. I haven't used Quixel in a while. Quixel is awesome in a way that has incredible scans. Like, the materials and models they do are, like, I think the best out there. I think that the material quality and some other stuff is probably better than the ones that you can find, for example, in Substance Source. But that's to be expected, because they're scans. They're gonna look the best that they can. Substance has a different approach. It gives you the tools to create a lot of new custom stuff. Yes, you can mix stuff in Mixer as well, but I still think, like, the systems that you can build, the actual mixing and the rule sets that you can do in Designer, and then on top of that, bring that onto Painter as well as custom tools. I think it's still at least a couple of steps in front of Quixel. And so overshadowing, I don't know. I think that they both have their own place in the industries, and I both think that they both should have their own places in the industries. And I only see us, the users, having benefits from both of them along the line.
Yes, perfect. If we could, let's say, combine those softwares, it will be amazing, because those libraries are pretty good. Also the scans, but like you mentioned, the scans are supposed to look good, but when you're using Substance Designer, you're creating something from scratch, and it's totally optimized.
So all I can see is done procedurally, but I've never done procedural stuff. Where should I start? Tutorials or similar stuff? Okay, so first decide what you want to start at. Some people start with procedural textures, some people start with procedural models. If you're a 3D artist, like a generalist or something low, I would maybe tell you maybe start with procedural modeling first. If you have some tools that you're already using, like Maya or Max, you can do some procedural stuff there already. Like Max has its like a modifier stack, which is basically procedural. Maya has, I don't know what it's called right now, that motion graphics tool that they use, which is also kind of procedural, like in distribution. So you can easily start there. If you're a cinema user, you have MoGraph. That's easy. So you can start, like, just kind of training yourself to think in that way, to think more in a mindset of building a system or a tool than building an asset itself. And once you switch to that mindset, it will be easy to kind of adopt any tool. Designer, there's a lot of tutorials for it today if you want to go down the procedural texturing. I can recommend their own library tutorials. It's like Substance Academy, it's called. There's a really, really good starting point. And once you get all of that nailed down, you can go to some specific tutorials. For example, like Daniel Tiger has incredible ones. Level Up Digital as well. Josh Lynch, Clark Kutz. Just like find an artist that you like, and most of them already make tutorials. So you can find something like that to start. If you go down the Houdini route, Houdini actually on their website they have a huge list of tutorials which are also like nicely oriented by the category. So if you're gonna go down the modeling or VFX or crowds, so or even like beginner ones. So their tutorials are also very, very good. For Houdini, I can also suggest Entangma's tutorials, but they're a bit more on a they're just different type of tutorials. Check them out; they do incredible stuff. But also don't, for example, if you go down the Houdini route, Houdini is a beast. Houdini is like an operating system for 3D. It actually doesn't even care about 3D or 2D or any visual. It's just like, give me this data and I will pipe out some different kind of data. It's just a beast. So if you decide to learn Houdini, don't learn it like everything at once. Contain yourself to a single piece of Houdini. For example, like only like modelings or so-called SOPs or surface operators, and just kind of dive into that. Don't even look the other things because you're just gonna get intimidated. Question: how much control do we have in procedural modeling compared to traditional block modeling? And do you think procedural will completely replace traditional? Also, would you be interested in sharing a tutorial on your workflow? Okay, so the amount of control you have, I would say, is the amount of control that you want to have, because you can. It's actually a slider. You can everything that you can do manually in any modeling app, you can do it as a procedural, because everything you do in an app, or like when you model in a Max or Maya, everything that you model, it's a script that does it. You can dissect that down to a line of code. So you can replicate whatever you do in procedural mechanism, but you shouldn't go that way. You shouldn't have all the control necessary. That's directly not the point of doing things this way. It's about finding the least amount of control for the best possible output. What you can do is like what I sometimes do, especially when I'm trying to kind of procedurally replicate a specific style, is that I manually model something first, just to see what needs to be done to match the specific style, and then I break down my steps, and then I recreate like some of those parts of those steps in procedural system. Do you think procedural will completely replace traditional? Completely no. I mean, like you still need to like handcraft a lot of very specifically hero assets, especially these days. But for the better part, especially for like world building thing, I think the procedural has already replaced traditional. Again, like I said, like there's this part which is generation, and then there's a different part which is like population or distribution. So on the distribution part, I think it already has replaced it. On the generation part, no, not yet. But the tools are getting crazier. I mean, just look at how much like neural networks or artificial intelligence has advanced. I won't be surprised if in the next like 2 years you just show an image to an AI network of a 3D model with a specific style and to like generate whatever it needs. So I think that definitely like the shift will be more towards procedural in the following years, but I really don't think that like it will be completely fully replaced. You still need people to kind of decide some things and do the creative part. And yes, I will be willing to share a tutorial in my workflow. Maybe just ping me, because I don't know which specific part are you referring to. Most of the things that I've showcased today, I can probably talk into details. There's just a couple of things that are concerning like Nordus projects that I really cannot get into it. But yeah, let me know what specifically you mean, and then we can discuss it further. In general, I'm all up for sharing everything I know. Yes, it's it's a real mustache. Can you not see? How about now? No, it's I like messing around with filters and whatnot. So, but I actually used to wear a mustache 4 or 5 years ago. Now I go beard or long beard, short beard. But I'm probably gonna go back to mustache after this pandemic is over. I think it will be a nice stylistic change for me. Okay, any tips on battling the imposter syndrome, especially with us rookies? Oh man, yes, that's a tough one. And I can give you my advices, but I think that the battling imposter syndromes are very like individual things. It's kind of it's the same problems, but people deal with it. Everybody kind of carries it in a different way. And I noticed that over the years, that imposter syndrome hits me every year. Like my motivation to work is like always on some kind of sinus function. Like it goes up, it goes down, goes up, goes down. And I don't think that I'm alone at this. I think that most of the artists feel at one point, or even like to their entire career like this. So what I try to do is actually this, like this entire self-improvement plans is actually my mechanism of battling imposter syndromes. Because I make a plan of what I want to learn, and if you make a plan and if you really kind of spend time, you're gonna learn it. You're gonna be better, and it's gonna make you feel better. Sometimes results come faster, sometimes results come a little bit later, depending on you and the matter that you're trying to kind of learn. But you should kind of give yourself room to improve. As Hugo said, you just gotta be better, but you also should spend time to be better. So try to organize yourself in a way to learn things that are interesting to you, and sometimes try something completely new. See how it works. Go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your like normal way of working things. Maybe you will get hooked to something completely new. And share things. Be a part of that community. Share your problems. Just by noticing that other people have the same problems, it will be easier for you to tackle with them. And then once you actually make something which is like high quality art, people will see that and they'll help you kind of boost your morale and your ego, which will help you battle that imposter syndrome. So just be open about it. I think that's kind of the first step. Question: what's next for you? What do you plan on improving? At the moment, so I had this crazy idea, which I don't feel I'm comfortable sharing yet. Let's see. But currently, with all this pandemic, I'm really preoccupied with working from and with my family. So actually, currently, I don't even have a self-improvement plan for myself. I kind of paused the one that I had because I had to. I'm very limited with time at the moment with the situation which is in the world, and with me moving on the new project inside of the company, I still need to see what the project is going to be about. So currently, I'm in some kind of a limbo mode, waiting for some decisions to be made before I make some new plans. But if you follow me on any social networks, as soon as I have something, you like people will be the first to know. Question: since you say that generalist is the way to go sometimes, what softwares are most used in the industry? A must, let's say. I get this question about tools and softwares a lot. Even though I have talked about tools a lot today, I don't think that they're most important. Yes, there are industry standards, and like I'm guessing that if you ask people, like different people get different standards depending on from what the industry they have. For example, in Nordeus, our pipeline, we try to build it completely software agnostic, in a sense that we are building a game. So we are lucky in that way that in the end we pipe everything into engine. So it doesn't matter if we model in Max or Maya. It doesn't matter if we sculpt in ZBrush or Blender. It doesn't matter really. Everything will be exported for the engine. But there are some tools, depending on the industry, which you will be crazy not to use. I think that if you're doing procedural stuff, Houdini is the tool to go. If you're doing texturing and texturing system, Substance tools for me are the way to go. And like, and if you're doing high-end compositing, I'm guessing Hugo will agree that the nuke is the way to go. There is, as far as like to my knowledge, Maya, if you're talking like 3D stuff, is very popular in the moving industry. Just because like it has a very long history, and like studios have built a lot of custom tools around Maya. So even today, if you go to I don't know, Pixar or Naughty Dog or whatnot, even in the end, if you open their Maya, it will not look like your Maya. Everything will be different because there's like tens and tens of years of custom tool development there. It's just not the same Maya that you used it. So nevertheless, you will need to go through some training to get the tools nailed down. So even if you came from a Max into a Maya pipeline, you still, if you're good at modeling, if you understand the principles, it will not be a problem for you to switch. And for example, I was at DreamWorks recently last year, and they're changing a lot of their pipelines to Houdini at the moment. They're doing a lot of things in Houdini now.
Yeah, it's amazing that you have been in DreamWorks as well as to teach some of the artists there, and it's a privilege to be in such a large campus. So can you tell us something about the campus? And
it's awesome. I mean, it's Los Angeles. Like it's very cool. Shout out to JC. He was like, it's a guy. That's the thing about these conferences. You go to these conferences. I was actually in Skopje last year, and I met JC, who is actually a training director there at DreamWorks, and I met him there, and like we really had a great time. Like Stefan, like really helped us like make cool friendships with all the lecturers last year. So I met a guy from DreamWorks, I met a guy from Pixar, I met Hugo. It's like this cool bunch of people. And then I was in the neighborhood for the Adobe Max conference, and I just pinged JC, and he was like, "Oh yeah, come, like let's visit us." And I spent the afternoon there, and it's amazing. Like the whole place, the whole campus feels like some kind of a seaside villa. You know, you has these pathways that you walk between all the houses and the departments, and has like the movie department has its own place, the TV department has its own place. They all gather together in this huge yard with pond for a lunch every day. And the day I was there, the weather was perfect, so everybody was outside, and it feels like you're outside, like having barbecue with friends, and you're actually at work. If you ever get a chance, do go there and visit it. It's really nice. So, questioned. It was relatable to me when you said that your brain works with both art and logical stuff, like programming and also 3D modeling, animation, renders, etc. Textures are a nightmare at the moment. So what do you suggest to a person like this? Where is my place in the industry? Well, if textures are a nightmare, then I would maybe say don't. Well, option A is like spend a lot of time learning how to texture, go on some courses or try to be better yourself, trying to find assets which are done like exceptionally well and try to break them down and learn. Option B is try not to create textures yourself. There are vast libraries of materials already out there, so use them to your advantage. So you don't need to deal with materials itself. You just need to kind of select where those materials are. Then it's not about texturing, it's more about like composition and color balance, more like about design principles. And option C is that yes, I advocate for people being generalists, but that doesn't mean that you should be. You can also specialize in something that you're really good at and then never do textures ever. There are places in the industry both for generalists and specialists, and I think that there always will be. Questions? Any tips for beginners in this field? I think they already kind of covered this one. Just like I said, if you're already using some tools, maybe try to stick to that tool if it already has some procedural capabilities, just in order for you to train the mindset, and then switch to a tool which is actually designed to do that. Designer, Houdini, Cinema, Blender has a lot of node-based procedural stuff as well, and you can use it for free. And also, like I say, go online and find tutorials. But I also think that learning is a very, very individual thing. I think that everybody learns in their own way. Some people learn best when they watch tutorials. Some people learn best when they're taught to. Some people learn best when they have a mentor like standing on top of them and just kind of slapping them. I found out that how I work best is like I define a problem that I want to fix or solve, a problem that has at least some amount of volume in it that I have no idea how I'm going to do that. So I present myself with an impossible challenge, and then I see what can I do in order to overcome that challenge. That's a method that works best for me. Maybe that will work best for you as well. So question, the automated pipeline that you talked about, does it directly plug from Substance to Houdini into the engine like Unity and Unreal? No, not at the moment, because while we were working on all of this, we didn't have support from tech artists, so we couldn't actually do that kind of a pipeline. So the actual interchange of the assets was done kind of manually. So we just kind of plug it into one, for example, we export all the models into one folder. Then I can say Houdini, just pick up all the models from this folder. I can code very, very elementary stuff. So like those very small things I could manage. Anything more complex than that, I would need help from a real kind of tech artist, which we didn't have at the time. But yes, that kind of exchange of assets is like very easily done for anyone who knows at least to do a little bit of Python. Okay. What scripting language you are using for the sum Python? I don't script. I don't script almost at all. I used to learn code when I was electrical engineering student, but I haven't coded in a while. That's why I like nodes. I like doing nodes and node-based like visual coding, because I just cannot be bothered writing code and fixing syntax errors. But the tools that we make in-house, we mostly use Python for the stuff that we make, that our tech artists make. What software are you using for the real-time mustache on Steam? That's a cool thing. So you can just, everybody knows Snapchat. So you just go on Snapchat website, and there is a like Snap Camera application that you download for Windows, and it just intercepts your video stream from the camera, and you can apply any Snapchat filter to it. And then, since you're all artists, I'm guessing that you can even create your own. There is this application which is also free called Snapchat Studio or something like that, where you can make your own custom masks. You just kind of plug in models and textures. It already has like all the hair tracking already implemented, so it is kind of easy to use. Question: what are your thoughts on rendering stuff in Unreal Engine compared to other programs for rendering? I think it's effing amazing. I think that real-time rendering has made a huge impact in the last couple of years. And I think it's just going to be even better. Compute power of GPUs is getting stronger. The quality output of real-time renderers is getting better. The feature sets are getting almost on par with offline renderers as well. I mean, we got ray tracing now in real time almost. Nice.
Also, I saw your gift from NVIDIA, so you have to.
Yeah. So I had this collaboration with NVIDIA, and they sent me this like the beefiest and the biggest Quadro card, which I actually then, which is cool because then my awesome company, Nordius as it is, they built me this computer rig, which is like incredibly powerful, and they built it into a server rack, and it's in our server storage at the company servers. And I have like remote desktop access to it. And then whenever I need to use that machine, I just remote desktop to it, and it works flawlessly. It's incredible. I work on my computer, and then just I send it for that computer to render it. It's a really good setup. Perfect. I think the rendering stuff in real-time engines is incredible. I don't know. Maybe you even know, but I'm not sure. So if you watch the TV show, The Mandalorian, the last Star Wars shows, so that show, the season 1 was actually done in Unreal. So they had this huge like digital stage, the entire like dome of screens all around it, and most of the shots were actually done in camera, so very little post-production. What they did is they kind of track the position of the camera, then project real-time environments from Unreal onto the displays behind the camera. It's an incredible. That's how I think that production is going to go along that way. Not entirely, of course, because there are some things that it's be very difficult to do that way. But some things are already there. As far as I know, the ILM has for season 2 they have ditched Houdini and they have ditched Unreal, and they're now building their own custom 3D engine for the season 2 of Mandalorian. So yeah, I'm all up for it. I think it's ridiculous to wait for render times. Any waiting is ridiculous. So do you put out tutorials, training, etc.? So I've been asked this a lot. I don't. I just don't. It's a time-consuming thing, like recording everything, going through it. I don't have time now. I'm very selfish about my time. I have a full-time job. I have a family with 2 kids. I want to spend all the time I can with them. And then the little time I'm left with, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm keeping it to working on the projects that I want to work. And I luckily I don't need any additional sources of income. So I decided not to do that. But what I do, I like to share everything that I know. When people ask me, I tend to set aside time to help people solve the problems or explain how I did something, because I learned a lot from the community itself, and I want to bring back a lot to it as well. So I do share source files of some of the works that I do, but I still don't do any tutorials. But I like doing these kind of things, like meetups, conferences that I really enjoy doing, because I can meet people in person and have them.
And Los Angeles.
Yes. Thanks for everything, Nikola. What a great talk. Hugo left for dinner. See you, Hugo. Okay. Any tips and tricks for new beginners that are interested in working in the gaming industry? Okay. So work your ass off, don't give up, and meet as many people as you can. I still see a lot of artists working their asses off, but never showing it to anybody. Nobody's going to hire you unless they know of you. Mingle. Go to community events, try to build something on your own to get exposure. Sadly, that's kind of the industry that we are in. And once you catch someone's eye, they're probably gonna give you a chance. I know sometimes it's hard because artists are usually introverts. It's very hard for them to be extrovert and kind of put themselves out there. But think doing that as one of your self-improvement plans, and try doing that. I mean, you still need to be good at doing this. Try to maybe go a little bit broad, more generalist in your first years, and then see if you can get a job in the smaller companies first. Everybody has their own dream job, and it's very rarely that somebody gets hired for their dream job as their first job. So aim for that dream job, but don't expect it to get it from the get-go. I know people who got their dream jobs after 10, 15, 20 years of very hard work and experience. Don't give up. That's kind of the main point, and try everything. Thank you for that. Thank you, guys. Do you use all programs, like, for example, Maya, Substance? So on personal projects, I immediately transfer to new ones. I even transfer even beforehand, because I'm in beta programs for most of them, so I get them sooner than. But for company projects, no. When we're working on a game product, we usually stay a longer period of time on a specific version, because we never know what will break if we update on a new program. So once we find that a new version of program has a feature that we really need, only that we consider upgrading. And even then, we do that as a parallel effort. We upgrade probably one machine, and then try to kind of do regression tests and everything that we can before we decide to do a project-wide or a company-wide upgrade. Okay, question. Do we need to have it in the portfolio to apply in your studio? What do we need to have? Do you maybe work remote at the moment, cause the situation? Yes, generally in Nordius, we don't hire remote workers. we build that building just because of the reason that we want everybody to be there. We want to for people to be collaborative the entire day, which is very hard when you're working from home. Even now, with people that I've known for 8 years, the productivity has obviously dropped. Like Zoom calls and meetings and doing everything to be online just inevitably makes everything slower. I think it's like some people do that easier. I know freelancers who like have zero problems working like this. Other people's don't. We prefer that being in an office and working on things there and together in the same office. But right now, yes, we are all working from home, and right now we probably, yes, the people that we hire right now, and we do hire, they are working from home. But those same people are expected to come to the office the moment that we all come to the office and not continue working from home once this situation ends. And what do we need to have in the portfolio to apply in your studio? Well, depending on for what position that you're applying. If you're applying for like a 3D artist, you need to show me, since we're a studio who prefers generalists or specialists, you need to show me at least for an entry-level position that you can do basically everything, that you can model and sculpt, that you know your art basics. Especially for entry-level positions, I'm not that much curious which tools you use. If you have like a proficiency with game engines, all of that we can easily teach you. I mean, anyways, every person that comes to Nordius has a couple of months of onboarding, where you learn how we do things and what tools we use. In that period, we can teach you how to use an engine. So what I'm looking at when I'm reviewing portfolios, it's like art basics and what people actually do and how they think, what is their kind of process of doing things. And of course, very important thing is how good of a person they are. We're not gonna hire assholes, even if they're like sublime artists. We're not gonna hire them. And not only that, also how well you work with other people. That's very important thing. Okay. Another new building. Thank you for the answers. Who? Okay. Thanks a lot, Nikola Damjanov, for this amazing sparring talk. Thank you for being here. We've been at it for 2 hours. Thank you for staying this long. And if this makes you work even harder, then my mission here is accomplished.
Yeah, sure. It was amazing to have you, as well as the presentation was awesome. You should need to add a few more images from the offices, so they will not even think about it working remotely, because I had the privilege to be there. And it was awesome to organize a conference last year and meet you all. And it's a privilege really, because you have just send us and transfer your knowledge as well as your passion. Basically, what artists are most needed these days are passion as well as motivation. And I'm glad that the audience interacted very good with you. And also, we will be pleased if you have one day a tutorial so we can follow, or a new stuff. So keep us updated. Yeah, we're back. Definitely, this was an amazing stream. Let me just take this off. It was amazing, really, because Damjan is one of the best speakers that we had. He's sharing a lot of passion. Also, he will help you with your portfolio. So make sure that you follow him on the social media like LinkedIn, YouTube. I think he has a YouTube channel. Yes, definitely. And he's experimenting with every software as possible. Also, he is a beta tester for many softwares. So it's a privilege to let's say meet him, as well as to contact him and have some engagement with him. So we're going to start with the giveaway. Yeah, I know it's little late, but we have to do something like that. Okay, let me just open the Nightbot and set up the... Okay, here is the hosting guest. Okay, we're going to type, let's say, start with the book first. The keyword will be book. Type it in the chat if you wanted to win the book from Substance, that they have supported us, as well as give us many merchandise from their inventory. Perfect. So we're going to have take one more second, and the other one will be let's make it easier. TS. So it's going to be easy for you. Type this one. Let's start with the book. I'm going to give you 2 more seconds. Yeah, here's the camera. Perfect. If you do have any questions or any artists you wanted to suggest, please let us know so I can now show you which ones we're going to stream next. So here we have Nikola Damjanov, perfect stream. Next we're going to have Marko Chulev. He's a model supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic. So he has worked there, I think, for 7 or 8 years. You can read his biography and also where he's coming from. He'll do a character likeness workflow for us from Maya, XGen, ZBrush, and something like that. I think it will be amazing because he has worked professionally in the industry, and maybe he is our idol. Basically, he's from Skopje as well, but now he's living in Vancouver. Next, we'll have Darko Mitev. So on 9th May, he's a lead character modeler at Brownback. That one, I don't know where the studio was based. I think in Ireland, something like that. Yes, I think. He was a lead character artist in Macedonia, in Skopje, and Inside. Now he will present something in his own work, the experiment, how he created this scene. So it will be great to watch him, as well as I'm very interested in seeing some of the techniques. And let me see. Yes, one more. There's 2 more. And Ronald from Autodesk. He'll be on 5th of May. I need to update the website, also the stream. He'll be showing us some new features in Autodesk Maya 2020. And I'm pretty interested in this one because in my last stream that I was streaming about animation, and there is a lot of updates. So they will be useful. Okay, let's start with the book. Let's roll it. So for the book, for this one and the toy. So basically it's in a box. Don't worry, I'm not giving it to you like this. It's from Avramovsky 00. Chat me, send me an email or message into the Twitch channel or something like that, and we're going to contact you and send you your prize. Cancel. And now we're going to start with the t-shirt from Substance. And the winner for the t-shirt is Dame118. So Dame, contact us. I'm really excited to share so many prizes because we have so much coming up. Let me just change the... Yeah, congratulations. Definitely, if you watch our streams, and we're going to give even more giveaways. For next stream, we're going to have an Unreal t-shirts. The problem is with the Unreal, they're all XXL and XL. It's large size, so don't worry. Your mom should wash it with high temperature and you should fit in them. For Substance, we have more books, and we have the PBR guide. I don't have it here. So it's amazing book. We're going to give away that one as well. It's very helpful for texture artists, and you can find it also on Amazon. So it's a pretty good book. Let me know if you want, let's say, some other prizes, because we do have many sponsors and I'm glad that we have them. So I'm going to say goodbye because I need to finish other work, and I hope to see you on the next stream. So thanks a lot and be safe definitely in these times. Bye. In 3, 2, 1.